Gentlemen, we had a spirited conversation earlier about whether what was done to Shedeur Sanders was fair. Now, after Shedeur was drafted, he reflected on how the whole process went. Here's what he had to say in a conference call to reporters. I feel like in life, there's always a way I can improve. I'm able to improve. And some things that I did that seems right at the time, I could have went about it in a different way. Stephen A., he's continued to be just humble and grateful through this entire process, obviously dropping what we thought was going to be a first-round pick to the 5th. Your thoughts?
Well, he did, and I'm quite sure he wasn't flawless in this whole process. I think that's easy to figure out with the things that have been written and said in terms of his attitude, his bravado, etc. There is no doubt that Deion Sanders didn't handle things flawlessly as well, and we all have to concede that. Leaning on what Louis Riddick said, it's not a perfect science. These are human beings, and things affect people differently. I get that part. But I do think, and please leave Louis up on the screen so I can see him, it is important to ask this question. What exactly has Deion done? He has an exceptional relationship with the league office. He used to work at CBS. He worked at the NFL Network. He loves kids. He believes in being a role model to raising young men, boys into becoming young men. He is universally recognized as one of the greatest talents the sport has ever seen, if not the history of athletics has ever seen. This man goes to the collegiate ranks. He's won at HBCUs. He's winning at Colorado. Okay, never been in any trouble. Okay, so this is not one of those situations where you look back at his playing career in the National Football League and he was some cancerous individual in a locker room or anything like that. You hear coaches and former players raving about what a leader he was, the hard work that he put in, the dedication, what he did to uplift people, what level of assistance he provided to other people that may have needed it, who may have been teammates, coaches, and beyond. You ever listen to the way Louis Riddick talks about Deion? You ever listen to the way other cats talk about Deion? And I'm not throwing any shade on a guy like Terrell Owens, for example, who should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? But we all knew the storylines that came with him. We knew the storylines that came with the Warren Sapps of the world or whatever. Where are they at now? Where do you see them now? They're on that damn sideline at Colorado. You know what I'm saying? Because Deion is always looking to extend and help, which is something the league applauds. So my point is that whatever imperfections he may have exercised leading up to the draft, it wasn't worth sending a message to him through his son, of all people. A son who performed, a son who was clearly at least the second best quarterback in the draft. We're talking about the most important position in football. To let this man drop to 144, to have this man endure 4.5 rounds where he's not even mentioned, knowing that his talent warranted. And what has Shedeur Sanders done? This is what he does with the watch. Okay, that's about it. He ain't getting in any trouble off the field. He's not acting up. He's not being some irresponsible individual or what. He puts in the work. So I'm just looking at all of that. I'm like, you can have the human element all you want to, but there are human imperfections. And some of those owners and some of those executives, they should be ashamed of their damn selves for what they did to Shedeur Sanders, because they were really targeting primetime Deion Sanders. And I think it's egregious considering who he is and what he has meant to football on the pro and collegiate level. He deserved better.
Yeah, look, I'll start with Shedeur. I'll start with Shedeur. Look, there's no question that Shedeur understands, based off of some of his comments, that there were probably some things that he could have done differently, that he should have done differently when he was going through the pre-draft process, specifically, between the time period of January up until the draft, where you're getting in front of people and you're trying to give them a view into who you are as a person, what you stand for, what you're going to bring to the organization. And it's important to understand your audience and understand what kind of perception that you're giving off, because what it is, whether we like it or not, I don't even know why we wouldn't like it. We understand it. It's a job interview. That's what it is, right? So you're going to have to handle that accordingly. There's going to be times where you can authentically really put yourself out there and let people see who you are. And there's going to be times where you have to understand your audience and understand that, look, maybe I need to pull back here or pull back there because I don't want people to perceive me in the wrong way. Because ultimately, what I want is I want to be drafted high, I want to be compensated and rather valued appropriately, and I want to have a long career. And these are the people who are controlling that for me. So I have to make sure I'm aware of that. And I'm sure that's probably some of the things that he's talking about. Maybe somewhere along the line, a few places, a few different interviews, maybe I didn't come off the way I needed to. Maybe I wasn't prepared the way I needed to be. As far as Deion is concerned, all people see is prime time. They will never not see him as prime time because they don't know him, Stephen A. They were never in a locker room with him. They never sat in his office out there in Boulder. They never had a conversation with him on the phone. They were never invited to speak to his team and talk to them about what it means to be a professional, what it means to look beyond your career on the football field and how important that is. They don't understand how much he values those kinds of things. They don't know what kind of teammate he was, how selfless he was, how human he was to me as a rookie who was just signed off the street down there in Atlanta. And my very first start in my professional career, he was there by my side and asking me, "Are you good? Are you good, Rook? Are you good? Don't worry about me. Just make sure you got what you got. This is what you need to." See, people don't know that about him. They just see the glasses, they just see the chains, they just see the flash, they just see the highlights of him dancing and having a good time in Atlanta and San Francisco and Dallas, man. They don't know him. And until you know him, you should probably temper some of your comments that you have about him.
Yeah, listen, there's really nothing more for me to say on this aspect because I thought both you and Lewis did an absolutely fantastic job of just explaining, why is Deion Sanders being excoriated in this whole process. Maybe there were some things that Shedeur Sanders could have done better in the pre-draft process. I think for us right now, just spinning it forward to the whole prank call situation.
Yeah, we need to get into that.
What was something awkward? God, hard to follow that. Shedeur Sanders waiting greedy. Look, we never thought he'd be there in the 5th round. Hopefully this is going to be ancient history soon, but that was a very awkward 3 days for him and everybody covering the draft.
It was, of course, and I'm sure it was difficult for him, and I thought he handled it, all things considered, very well, and we talked about it earlier. This is now the Browns quarterback room. I don't think Deshaun Watson will be in that room. I think he has played his last game there. Kenny Pickett has been on 3 teams in 2 years. Joe Flacco, I made a joke about it earlier, he's obviously a much older player. They're not banking on him for their future. And I think that despite the fact that Dillon Gabriel was drafted ahead of Shedeur Sanders, everyone considered Shedeur a higher-rated prospect than Dillon Gabriel. I think there were extenuating circumstances with Shedeur, right? We've talked about it all morning long. So that's when I said that the one thing that hasn't been said enough is he wound up in a great place. Like, the draft is the beginning of the story. It's not the end. We treat it like it's the end because we spend so much time talking about it. But right now, if I had to bet on it, I would bet that Shedeur Sanders is the starting quarterback for Cleveland sometime relatively early this season. This is just I don't know any guess.
You're not boosting it?
I'm not boost it, baby. and if he's good, he'll have his chance to prove it.
And there's 2 fundamental reasons why. He may be the best player at A, and then B, guys, if we're the Browns, we have 2 1s next year.
Yes.
We have to know what we have between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders.
First, I would object that the most awkward thing was not Shedeur's slide. It was that Belichick interview. Moving right along, though, I will give you here, a little boom, boom. That was strange. But I would say in this case, Cleveland, you might say Cleveland, that's where quarterbacks go to rot. No, he's got an opportunity to win the job. And furthermore, this particular coaching staff with Stefanski and Tommy Rees and Bill Musgrave, they are quarterback guys. All of them are looked as quarterback experts. If there is a coaching staff and a nurturing coaching staff, it's an offensive one like that and not one where it's a defensive coordinator who just does not want you to turn the ball over.
Let's talk about attitude, okay? So I think that Shedeur's braggadocio, whatever it is, and his dad's, it did not work in their favor during this process. I'm not involved in any of the meetings. I don't know. I was a believer in him going into the draft, and I remain one. It obviously went badly. A very smart man once said to me, when something goes wrong, the successful person begins by asking, what part of it was my fault? What part of it did I get wrong? What are you looking for now? If you're a player on that team and he walks in, the first day he's going to walk into camp, what are you looking for?
I'm just looking to see how he moves from everything, from the meeting, the weight room, how he eats, just how he interacts with his teammates. Because everyone has a perception of what Shedeur Sanders is. But no one actually knows the type of young man that he is.
Right.
He has an opportunity to walk into that building and establish a chemistry with those people from day one, to establish a new narrative from day one. So that's why I think this is such a great opportunity for him. He's going to get great coaching as a quarterback. And trust me, all those guys in the locker room, they're going to be watching, because everyone's heard about Shedeur Sanders and all this and that. They're going to be, all those guys in the locker room will be watching to see what this young man does.
The one thing that all 32 teams said about Shedeur Sanders, tough as nails, got the crap kicked out of him.
Yeah, every week.
And got up and never complained. Like, at the very least, you're talking about, this is not a diva, this is a tough player.
So, Mike T, now you've drafted him, all right? You're the general manager. This whole situation played out as it did, and what are you saying to him?
Same thing we said to Laramie Tunsil in 2016. What happened on draft day is ancient history, very similar to D-Wood. We go by what we see. And to Peter's point, he was sacked 94 times. He only missed one game. He loves football. He's tough. And you have an unbelievable opportunity to be the quarterback here for as long as you want to be.
He gets there not as a star player, but as a fifth-round pick, which, I mean, if you're in an NFL locker room, the fifth-round pick's not somebody that's getting a lot of attention. He's not somebody that has any sort of opportunity spelled out for him, right? He's going to have to earn his way up the depth chart there. And I think they probably start with the two veterans up at the top of the depth chart because they have the experience, and they're open-minded if Shedeur Sanders shows them something that they obviously did not see in the first 4 rounds of the draft.
You make a very interesting point. He walks in the door as a fifth-round pick. He also walks in as the most famous person in that room.
Sure.
I mean, if he wasn't already, he certainly became that this weekend. I don't think any player has ever spent more time being talked about on ESPN than he did over those 3 days.
But I think my point is that it's not going to matter. Like, at this point, that doesn't matter. That is not going to benefit him in any way in terms of this competition.
I agree. What I'm saying is I'm dying to see how he handles that part of it. Does he walk in like a fifth-round pick, or does he walk in like the most famous guy in the building?
And also, like, to your original point about asking, well, how much of this is my fault? Like, first conversation should be with the Cleveland coaching staff. Why did I fall to the fifth